It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. We've got a great show for you today, so please hit that share button and help us keep the show growing. Today, we are kicking things off with famed psychologist and best-selling author Jordan Peterson as he goes all scorched earth on academia and officially resigns his full professorship tenured at the University of Toronto. So this is kind of a big deal being a university professor myself. I must say that there's many as the time that I have fantasized about walking away. Look, I tell you, when I get into a classroom and close the door and then begin to engage with the students, that's what I was born to do. That's important, and I think we do that. I do that at a high level, as certainly Jordan Peterson did. But boy, once you close the door and leave the classroom, the entire campus has been overrun by radical left progressive nonsense. Faculty meetings are a disaster, having to sit there and watch as every bad idea that's making education less about education and more about politics gets passed without any way or anybody daring to stand up to it. I've watched as in 13 years at the university I'm now, every single thing that I would have voted for has lost. I don't think I've ever been on the winning side of a seriously contested issue, and it becomes very demoralizing to the point where you just stop going. Campuses are a disaster, and to listen to Peterson's articulate way of explaining the problem, I think, is worth hearing. Here's what Peterson actually had to say. Quote, "I had envisioned teaching and researching at the University of Toronto full-time until they had to haul my skeleton out of my office. I loved my job, and my students, undergraduates and graduates alike, were positively predisposed towards me. But that career path was not meant to be." Peterson explained that he could no longer idly stand by and watch what he called, quote, "qualified and supremely trained heterosexual white male graduate students," unquote, be overlooked for research positions simply for the push for diversity, equity, and inclusion. These have been imposed universally in academia, despite the fact that university hiring committees had already done everything reasonable for all the years of my career and then some to ensure that no qualified minority candidates were ever overlooked. He continued, "My students are also partly unacceptable precisely because they are my students. I felt this too. When students work with me, those students who want to reject the progressivism, follow me, take classes from me, take multiple classes from me, that's a problem. Right? When a kid takes 7 classes with a radical lefty, that just shows how effective the professor is. When they follow people like Peterson and me, well, that's problematic, right? I've heard this at every university I've taught at. You're not a popular teacher, Pesta. You just brainwash your kids, right? Brainwashing is what we get accused of. I know Jordan's been accused of that as well. So when you fall lockstep in line with the progressive zeitgeist on campus, that's good education. When you rebel against what your teachers are saying and follow somebody like me, well, that's brainwashing. He goes on to say, "My students are also partly unacceptable because they're my students. I am academic persona non grata because of my unacceptable philosophical positions. And this isn't just some inconvenience. They all lie, these professors," he says, all these administrators. "They all lie, and they teach their students to do the same," he alleged. All they do, and they do it constantly, with various rationalizations and justifications, further corrupting what is already a stunningly corrupt enterprise. Some of my colleagues even allow themselves to undergo so-called anti-bias training, conducted by supremely unqualified human resource personnel, lecturing inanely and blithely and in an accusatory manner about theoretically all-pervasive racist, sexist, heterosexist attitudes. Such training is now often a precondition to occupy a faculty position on a hiring committee. He's exactly right. But I wanted to save for you one of the last paragraphs he wrote, in which he calls out the students of these schools, the faculty, and the administrators for letting this happen. This is pretty scathing. He says, quote, all of you going along with the diversity, inclusion, and equity activists, whatever your reasons, this is on you," Peterson said, "cowering cravenly in pretense and silence, teaching your students to dissimulate and lie, to get along. as the walls crumble for shame, and you CEOs signaling a virtue you don't possess and shouldn't want to please a minority who literally live their lives by displeasure. You're evil capitalists, after all, and you should be proud of it. At the moment, I can't tell if you're more reprehensibly timid even than the professors. Why the hell don't you banish the human resource, diversity, inclusion, and equity upstarts back to the more appropriately named personnel departments and stop them from interfering in the psyches of you and your employees and just be done with it?
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
Joined now by our international correspondent, Alex Newman. Alex, thanks for your time today.
Thanks for having me, dude. Great to be with you.
We live at a time when maybe you and I ought to reconsider these beards, because you have children now in American public schools, and this is utterly predictable. If you're going to let kids pretend to be whatever gender they say they are, if you're going to let them to engage in this kind of denial of biological reality, why not allow them to become identifying as furries? Tell us what a furry is, Alex.
Yeah, you almost feel ridiculous talking about it, Duke, but there are now hundreds of thousands of kids all across this country in government schools, I mean, brainwashed zombies, I feel so bad for them, that are identifying as they call themselves furries. They might be identifying as a dog or a cat or a kangaroo. And so they come to school wearing tails. They come to school, painting whiskers on themselves. They put little fake ears on. And like literally the ones that identify as cats, they'll meow at people. The ones that identify as dogs will bark at people. They'll growl at people. In some cases, we've got reports of children biting other students as if they were dogs. And this whole scandal kind of broke because there was a report in Michigan about a school putting a litter box in one of the bathrooms for the children that identify as cats. Now, the superintendent there said that wasn't true, but the fact that the kids are dressing up as animals and barking and meowing is absolutely true. It's demonstrably true, and it's happening all across this country.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. What is this adult inability now? I mean, this is the same adult progressives who just 5-6 years ago were lecturing children about not being, little girls aren't princesses, that's misogynist and patriarchal, we can't dress our girls up like that, but dressing them up as anteaters or whatever is perfectly normal and acceptable. What is this concession of reality that adults, from time immemorial, it has been the role of parents to ease children through education into an adult world? Why has the progressive left completely abandoned this?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head at the start of the program, Duke, when you said that this is just the logical progression of what's been going on. I mean, if a boy can identify as a girl and wear a skirt and go into the girls' bathroom and change with the girls in the locker room, we got to be logically consistent here. Why can that child not then identify as a cat or a tree or a zebra, right? There's absolutely no logical reason why a child should be able to pick their gender but not be able to pick being some other type of creature. And I think the real explanation for this, Duke, and a lot of people don't like to hear this, but the real explanation to be found in Romans 1 of the Bible. When these progressives would do what the Bible describes as deliberately suppressing the truth in their unrighteousness. They want to deny that God exists. They want to deny that there are eternal moral truths that apply everywhere at all times for all eternity. Then they are handed over to a depraved mind, and they believe absolutely idiotic things like that it's acceptable to pick a new gender, or that it's acceptable to pick being a cat or a dog and to behave like a dog. And so, where is the logical ending point of this? Is there any, off ramp where we can kind of de-escalate this situation? And honestly, I don't know. I don't know how crazy this gets before people finally come to their senses.
Why can't some clever kid identify as a teacher and then change his own grades? I mean, or enter
or
his own
identify
grades?
as a principal and start, firing everybody.
Or why can't I identify as a Social Security receiving senior citizen and start getting paid? Why is that not possible? It is possible.
Using the logic of these people, there's absolutely no reason why you should not be able to do that. Hey, I should be able to identify as the President of the United States. You better let me into that White House. You don't want to discriminate against me based on my perceived identity.
It'd be interesting to see you to identify as the president of the United States. You'd have to immediately start falling asleep, and we wouldn't want that to happen. But so last point, we got a minute left. Obviously, one thing we haven't covered yet. What does this mean, though? What kind of leverage does this kind of garbage, accepting the furry movement, how does that help the left undermine parental rights?
It helps the left undermine everything, from parental rights to civilization to common sense to basic standards of behavior. I mean, again, I don't see where the logical endpoint is here, but if we continue on this road, it literally means the complete implosion of everything that makes civilization possible. I mean, we could literally go back to being, jungle-dwelling savages swinging from trees, and that's why we need to resist this madness before it goes any further.
It's time to talk about the borders and the real issues plaguing this country when you have a supposed leader like this guy.
Nationally, last year, extreme weather cost us $145 billion. That's what it costs the American public. And extreme weather is not going to ease up on its own. We have to be ready. That's why we're investing in our resilience, building roads higher when we rebuild them, our levees stronger, our power grids more durable so they don't get blown down and cause massive wildfires, to withstand the increasing ferocity of extreme weather.
And how much has Joe Biden's ideas cost all of us? He's blaming inanimate objects, much like I blame him, also an inanimate object. But rejoice in knowing that inanimate object has united us. We know from last week's video, which of course you should all go watch, that Biden did fulfill one campaign promise, the promise to unite us all together into disliking all that he is doing. And now the polls show not only do we all dislike him as president, we're united in thinking he should be impeached. Half of the country right now thinks that Joe Biden should be impeached. And it's a 50-50, equally broken down by race. By party, to be expected is 74% of Republicans, but for half of the Democrats and independents to say impeach, eek! Bad news bears, or now that Washington football has named itself, I guess, Bad News Commanders, and the so-called commander-in-chief. The main reasons for impeachment given were the debacle with Afghanistan and failed immigration policy. So there's actual reason to impeach, not just, that he had mean tweets. Which brings us to today's question. Should Biden be impeached? Let me know your answer and reasoning in the comments. And if you could share this video to get some deserved exposure to the trucking industry and the police, I'd appreciate it. Now on to those topics, because that's what's been happening this week. We'll start with the trucking convoy that the media in America is trying to forget that this is actually happening in our northern neighbor because it has implications right here at home. Up there into Canada, thousands of truckers joined the Freedom Convoy 2022 on its way to Ottawa to protest the vaccine mandates, making it impossible for those truckers who are not vaccinated to cross the U.S.-Canada border without having to quarantine once returning home. According to Pajama Pants Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Canadians are disgusted by such action. He wrote, "I know this pandemic is frustrating. It's frustrating that after 2 years, we're not done fighting COVID-19. But over the past few days, Canadians have been shocked and frankly disgusted by the behavior displayed by some people protesting in our nation's capital." He tweeted that out from an undisclosed location because he's a real leader. And he's COVID positive, just about 3 weeks after boasting that he got boosted. But he still is pushing the vaccine and booster in the name of science. I am glad he's feeling fine, because there are many who got COVID who feel like they got hit by a truck.
This protest isn't about truckers. It's about people who don't want to believe in science, don't follow the principles that are going to keep us all safe, and at the same time are expressing a very concerning degree of intolerance and hateful messaging that has no place in Canada. So we're going to stay focused on supporting Canadians to get through this the right way by listening to science.
So it's all about the science. But Trudeau still says it's all about freedom.
We always in Canada will defend freedom of assembly, freedom of expression, freedom to protest against a government that people disagree with. That is all fine. But when it falls into hate speech, when it falls into causing economic damage or fear and assaults on innocent residents of Ottawa, that's unacceptable, and that's where the police will ensure that things get back to normal quickly, and that is what people are focused on.
You can see he's very worried about the collective mass of truckers being intolerant with hate speech.
Convoy has picked up people with a variety of grievances along the way. As for concerns about security, the protesters we talked to say that's media and government hype.
We're all doing this peacefully. We all had to sign a contract and a code of conduct. We're all on board with this. This is for all of Canada, not just for Ontario or not just for the truckers. This is for everyone.
It's even for the likes of the liberal Russell Brand, who gets what is happening on the grand scale and has woken up to the reality of what's happening.
How come the truckers go from being heroes one minute when they're delivering vital goods and services to being loathed if they won't participate and capitulate according to the will of the powerful? The answers are probably pretty bloody obvious to any of you that switched on, and I know you are, you wonderful miracles. So let's have a look at this story using stuff we've had to do ourselves because the mainstream media won't bloody do it for us.
You go right ahead and pick your lane. And pick your lane for another controversy that's hitting more in the United States. Since it'll be a long drive for those truckers, I hope they're listening to Spotify. But not Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, or Graham Nash, because you can't find them anymore on the Spotify. They have pulled their music because they simply disagree with Joe Rogan. Yes, the Joe Rogan, who has guests on his show that are controversial, and they, dare I say it, have civilized conversations for hours on end. So for being someone who likes to critically think and engage with others, he must be kicked off of Spotify. Him and his 11 million listens per episode. I think not. But grown adults are having a tantrum and demanding that no one can think differently and hear other opinions. They only want to teach your children that a case of you thinking is not allowed. See what I did there? Again, pick your lane. On the side of free thinking is Elon Musk, The Rock, and Tulsi Gabbard. And those who are being babies are Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, Graham Nash, and Joy Behar. Pick your side, and if you choose these boomers, then you can just stop watching the video and be on your merry way. Yeah, I am comfortable being on the side of free thought. This is very important to remember, so anyone still here, please listen closely. When the media is trying to distract you with nonsense, such as, is the Spotify fight currently, look closely at what the federal leaders are doing. The real danger of what is happening is not being reported because we're all distracted by Joe Rogan and the once relevant Neil Young. So you may have completely missed that we've had several police officers shot and killed in the past few weeks, all while looters are out about stealing all that they'd like to with no consequence. In Canada, the truckers are on a convoy, and in the United States, there was another convoy of late to honor those fallen. In New York City, 22-year-old detective Jason Rivera and his partner Wilbert Mora were killed in Harlem after responding to a domestic disturbance. Thousands of officers from other states and even the United Arab Emirates descended on the city to pay their respects. Of course, because police officers were involved and there are crazy people out there, it had to be taunted by said crazy people who claim they're all about solidarity and, bringing people together, but are really just full of rage and hate, and so they take it out on Twitter. Now, be warned, there are many expletives in this clip.
Bro, but if I'd have known about that motherfucking funeral, I would have fucked that shit up, bro. All the way. 100% I'd have fucked that shit up, bro. I'm telling you. Yo, they came around that corner. No cops. No KKK. Oh, man. So I'd have fucked that funeral up, son. That'd have been a wet dream to fuck that funeral up, bro. Oh, my goodness, son. I can't wait. I'm looking for the next cop funeral. I'm going to fuck it up, bro. I'm telling you, I'm going to fuck that shit up. They'll make news ASAP. It up. I don't give a fuck, bro. I don't give a fuck. I'm fucking their next funeral up. You niggas better not die no time soon, because I'm going to fuck your funeral up. You stinking ass. Son, that's going to be my new threat to them. I can't wait for one of y'all to die so I can fuck your funeral up. Word up, man. Fuck them, bro.
I think it was 21 expletives that man chose. He sounds like a delightful human being. Rhetoric was not a class this man ever took, but neither was basic human dignity. Will he be investigated for his threats?
Bueller. 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 Bueller.
That's what I thought. Because those at the top really only care about the narrative they want to push. Right, Jen Psaki?
There was your appearance in Pod Save America. There was a discussion of Fox's crime coverage. And one line has prompted some criticism from people. It was soft on crime consequences. What even is that? Were you speaking in your personal opinion, or is that at all a reflection of the priorities of this administration? Because the criticism is that it would reflect that crime is not a priority of this administration.
Well, I encourage anyone to listen to the full context of the interview and the conversation. What I was speaking to was a chyron on Fox News, since you raised it, which suggested this administration is soft on crime with no basis.
The Biden administration is soft on crime. Here's your basis.
Back in my Rite Aid, and there's nothing to steal because this Rite Aid, like so many other Rite Aids, is closing down because everybody stole everything. And the workers here don't know if they're getting jobs. Congratulations, losers.
That's lefty actor Michael Rapaport, who in a previous video showed a New York City shoplifter just walking out of the Rite Aid in front of the security officer, and I guess Michael's waking up to the insanity. I'd personally rather have this lady in the security officer role.
You gonna pay for that?
Huh?
You gonna pay for that?
Yeah.
When?
Huh?
You gonna pay for it?
Excuse me. I'm set up again. Stop. Goddamn thing.
Come on, bud.
Stop.
Come on.
Get out.
Come on.
Get out. Get out.
Take your and go. Off.
You just jack up the price for everybody else because of you. It's about time they got caught.
Now that is a boomer who I could support. You see some people waking up to this insanity and the masses coming together in unity. Again, Joe Biden did something right in that sense. But it's going to take real standing up by everyone to have hope of retaining freedom. That's an F we can give, in addition to our faith, family, and friends. Keep giving those Fs and make sure to share this video with some of those Fs. Until next time, let's go Brandon, and stay healthy, America.
If you have a question for Dr. Duke and Katie, please send it our way by emailing askduke@fpeusa.org.
All right, before we wrap things up, I do want to take a moment to show some love to our Patriot Club members. Today we give a great big shout out to Joe from Bartlett, Illinois. Thanks, Joe, for supporting us. And that's going to do it for this show. I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, you stay educated, my friends.